Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty Podcast, hosted by the Fantasy Holics Podcast Network. Coming at you live on the YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bo. That's Brant. I guess that's Brant. There we go. Listen, it's been a wild few weeks. We didn't put an episode out last week because I think it would have been in the middle of the smoke and mirrors, and some things might have felt a little different than they do today, which is why we didn't put one out last week. Kind of waited to see how this free agency would kind of play out a little bit more. It always starts off like with a full head of steam, like those first 30 seconds of the legal tampering period are nuts, and then we kind of have a slowdown period. But Brant, it was a fun ride. It was definitely busy. I know you and I were at work, and as we were checking the TVs, checking the internet, and calling each other. And oh, can you believe so and so went here? And we, there's a lot going on between the two of us at work. So definitely excited to get on here and talk some fantasy free agents moves with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun. And this is the first one that I've really been paying very close attention to, is Seattle with the brand new coaching staff and everything else going on. So I normally pay attention, but this one I've been glued to every few minutes, hitting refresh on the computer, on the phone, not closing out of the websites. But yeah, it's been a fun ride, and it's really just the beginning of the off-season twirling.
Yeah, it's only going to get busier as it goes. We're wrapping through pro days of college guys. With the big news of Marvin Harrison not participating again in that. Now there's rumors that maybe Malik Neighbors leapfrogs him in the actual draft. That'd be interesting. We'll see. And then you got Caleb Williams dapping up Keenan Allen in the Bears garb at his USC pro days. So there's definitely some stuff going on. Never a dull moment. It's going to be a little bit of a dull stretch, I think, in between now and the draft. We've gotten through the combine. There'll be some rumors about players coming here, maybe a trade or two happening. But really, we've seen all the big dominoes fall up until the draft, I think, Brant.
Yeah, I think all the big names, the fantasy relevancy names are mainly excuse me, out and either on a new team or have re-signed. And that's what we're going to break down today, is really break down some of these free agents and talk about what to expect next year with them. Is their ceiling going to be higher with their new team, lower with their new team? Are they even going to be a starter with their new team? So yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that.
All right, Brant. Well, let's go ahead. It sounds like we're at a smorgasbord of an episode. Let's get those bibs on so we don't get messy.
And let's eat.
Let's eat. All right. So as we had mentioned before the intro there, Brant, that there's been a lot of dominoes that have fallen. Really quick before we start going team by team here and talking about some of the fantasy relevant stuff, there are some fantasy relevant names still that have not fell yet. So I want to go through some of those real quick, be super brief. You tell me if there's any names in here that you still like or that have value in your mind. For the quarterback position, you've still got Ryan Tannehill and Carson Wentz that have not signed. Maybe with Tannehill as a spot starter. I don't see a whole lot with Carson Wentz. I don't know if you agree or disagree there.
I think they're both destined for backups.
Okay. Running backs, there's still some interesting names. This list 4 years ago would have got a lot of us salivating. J.K. Dobbins, Cordero Patterson, Zeke Elliott, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are all still unsigned running back free agents, Brant.
I want to say Dobbins so bad, but nothing on that list gets me too excited. Zeke, maybe if he goes back and gets behind a line, we saw some flashes of fantasy relevancy, but as of that list right there. It's not looking good.
Okay. All right. Wide receiver, I still think has a little bit of some value to pump into some offenses here. Michael Thomas, who you have been in love with, out of love with, in love with. OBJ, who you hated, kind of liked a little bit towards the end of last year. Somebody who I love, Hunter Renfro, Tyler Boyd, and Michael Gallup still out there for wide receivers.
Yeah, I think Gallup's going to fall. That was just a release just a few days ago. I think it was. Hunter Renfro will find a way to be in a slot. He's one of those guys. If Belichick was still in the league, I think he already would have been signed to wherever Belichick was, just because he is that type of guy that he likes. So I think those two there are going to be a big hit. And then the rest, Boyd, and then we just got to wait and see what happens with them.
Okay. All right. So those are just and tight end. I didn't really want to bring it up, but I will. Logan Thomas doesn't move the needle for me a whole lot. I'm sure it doesn't for you. Not somebody you're going to rush out and go sign. So
no, I already have him in our deep league.
There you go. All right. All right. Let's get into these actual signings, and we're going to talk about the fantasy impact they have a little bit. So let's start with the Buffalo Bills, Brant. Curtis Samuel is the one that I've gotten written down that I think is a needle mover for this team. I think it maybe gets that Gabe Davis-esque role. I think it takes I don't know if it takes pressure off of Allen or not, because I think Curtis Samuel will be more it'll be more average. Like, it'll happen more often, more routine, I guess, than what Gabe Davis did. Gabe Davis would explode and be quiet for a few games. I think this won't be as big of explosions, but I think it'll happen more often.
Yeah, it's either Gabe Davis or not Gabe Davis. It's either going to be Curtis Samuel or Mac Hollins falling into that. I could see that being a small camp battle there. I know Samuel had his explosion on and off over the last couple of years. I think it'll be fun to watch. But if I have to draft early or these guys are out on the waivers and I only get one shot at it, I'm definitely going with the Curtis Samuel role here. I think that he's going to have the leg up in order to move forward. But both those receivers could end up actually very valuable in that offense.
I agree. I like both of them a lot. Anything attached to Josh Allen's fun for fantasy. Moving on to the Miami Dolphins, Brant, I have Jonnu Smith, who they got just before legal tampering period, was able to start due to him being cut by my Atlanta Falcons. Had one of his best seasons of his career last year with Atlanta. Miami's kind of absent a tight end. The rest of that offense is pretty fun. I do like Jonnu Smith here.
Yeah, I do too. We saw flashes of there in Atlanta of what he is capable of for somehow taking away targets from Kyle Pitts. Don't understand that still. But I do think Jonnu's going to be have some value. I don't think you're going to be talking about him. Oh, this guy's a top 10 tight end every single week. There will be weeks that he will be very valuable. I think he'll be a very good streaming option in deep leagues. If you do have a backup tight end, he wouldn't be a guy that I'd be too upset about holding for a backup.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move on to the Patriots. I've got Antonio Gibson to compete with Ramondre Stevenson and KJ Osborne. I like KJ Osborne quite a bit. Is there a chance? For me, this screams like an opportunity for KJ Osborne to be a wide receiver one in an offense. Granted, it is a disgusting offense, not one that I'd necessarily want to own. Juju kind of didn't work out. Devonta Parker didn't work out. But I think Ramondre's got this backfield on lockdown. Brant Gibson doesn't bother me much. I like KJ Osborne a little bit more as far as what he could have potential role-wise.
Yeah, I like KJ Osborne there. This is a good chance. We talked about it at the beginning of last year, prior to Addison being signed or being drafted by Minnesota, of the step that KJ Osborne was taking. And now you could get a chance to really, really see that with Kendrick Bourne still there. I want to say Juju's still under contract there. I don't think he's a free agent. Parker did get cut. So really you're talking Juju, Bourne, and KJ are about the only three still relevant on that roster right now. I know there's some younger guys there. So I do like KJ Osborne. This is a guy that I'll be probably looking to make a stab late, barring them adding one in the draft, a top guy.
Sure.
And then Gibson, like I've always said, he's a former receiver turned into running back. So he could take some of that pass catching role away from Ramondre and Stevenson. If you think about it, 2 years ago had a lot of pass catching role. Last year he was involved quite a bit prior to getting banged up. So this could bring Stevenson's value down just a little bit,
Mhm,
bringing Gibson into the mix. But yeah,
mhm.
yeah, KJ is the one that I'm really excited for there.
Okay. Moving to the last team in this division, the New York Jets, with I think the biggest single move out of any team in this division based on fantasy relevancy, is Mike Williams. Brant was cut by the Chargers and signs with the New York Jets on a 1-year deal.
I love it right now. This is a right now. I love it. We are going to have to get something. They are going to have to get something to protect Rodgers in that draft, or even one of his best friends there that got cut by Green Bay, possibly. But yeah, I think Williams right now. I absolutely do love this fit. We know Rodgers can support multiple receivers. He is coming back from injuries. I think Mike Williams will be a wide receiver 2 by the end of this offseason. When you talk about fantasy relevancy here.
Okay. It is worth noting, Brant. I want to double check that I get the name right. Yes. They did get Tyron Smith, the dominating offensive tackle from Dallas. They signed him in a 1-year, $20 million deal. And then they also traded for Morgan Moses with the Baltimore Ravens. So they've spent some money. They did sign another offensive lineman, John Simpson, I'm not familiar with, but they did add some protection for Aaron Rodgers, which, listen, if Aaron Rodgers makes it through a full game this year, it'll be more than we got last year. So we don't need to get ahead of ourselves asking for too much out of that Jets franchise there. So, all right, moving right along into our next division, I think we'll start off with an absolute banger here. Ravens add Derrick Henry, Brant. What do you make of the Derrick Henry signing with the Ravens?
You and me have been talking about this since the trade deadline of last year, that this would be the best thing for Derrick Henry to keep his career rejuvenated. Just imagine you're a defense and you got to stare at that run option. What do? Do you want to get ran over by the freight train of Derrick Henry, or do you want to look stupid out there getting juked out of your boots by Lamar Jackson? This is going to be amazing. This is going to be deadly to watch. It's going to be so much fun to actually watch. Could he possibly be able to throw the ball a little bit more there with Lamar Jackson?
Derrick Henry? Yeah, it's Derrick Henry will throw
Yeah,
the ball.
Derrick Henry probably will have more touchdowns by the end of the year than Lamar does throwing. It will be. It's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be interesting. We've already started to see the Derrick Henry workout off-season videos already starting to sneak their way onto Twitter and all that. So it's going to be fun to watch. And I think Derrick Henry is back into that top 12 running back talk. I know he had a missing, I don't want to say a missing year last year, but he was a down year last year. But I think he's back into that top 10 running backs.
Listen, I don't want to say anything that makes anybody think I'm a hater or anything of that stretch, but Baltimore Ravens don't have a history of keeping running backs healthy. So hopefully for an older running back like Derrick Henry, they're able to keep him healthy. But I do think this man could have the biggest touchdown year of his career if he stays healthy.
Get Mitchell. If you draft Henry, get Mitchell to back him up.
Absolutely. All right, moving over to the Bengals. They add Zach Moss to compete with Chase Brown at running back, and then Mike Gesicki. They did re-sign T. Higgins, or franchise tag T. Higgins. I don't know. As of right now, when we're recording this on March 21st, he's still a Bengal. We'll see if he is when the season starts.
Yeah, as for Zach Moss, apparently, I was told that he was efficient out of the shotgun, and I guess the Bengals run the most shotgun. So I guess this makes sense. I didn't do a whole lot of research because I'm sorry, Zach Moss isn't the one that's striking my fancy being added to a backfield. And then Joe Mixon getting traded away, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I'm lowering expectations. I expect that to be a huge committee with Moss and Brown there. I don't see one being a true number one. I absolutely love the addition of Gesicki there at tight end. He hasn't really had a very valuable tight end to stay healthy on the field. So Joe Burrow does have one that's going to be a red zone monster. So I like the addition of Gesicki, and I guess Zach Moss. Almost wanted to call him Zach Brown. Might as well just call it Zach Brown because that's going to be what the backfield looks like. But yeah, it's going to be weird to see those two in the backfield. And like I said, I think it's a huge committee.
Yeah, I mean, if you think back to how long Joe Mixon's been in Cincinnati, it was still the glory days of Le'Veon Bell in Pittsburgh,
Hmm.
back when Joe Mixon first got added out of Oklahoma there. So it's definitely going to be different not seeing him in those Tiger stripes this year. But yeah, I like your analysis on both of those two players. Moving over to the other team in Ohio, the Cleveland Browns, they add Deontay Foreman. Just I think that was yesterday or the day before they signed him, Grant. And then I have the Jerry Jeudy trade written down as well. So those are the two big free agent period moves that I have written down.
No idea. Recalculated some notes here and still forgot to put Jeudy on my notes. That's going to be. There's something going on there in Cleveland with the additions of the two quarterbacks and then the two running backs. Is Nick Chubb not healthy? Is it not going right? You had Foreman and Hines both signed with the Browns, and then I think it was Jameis Winston and help me out, Huntley, who both were serviceable when they were starters in the NFL. So it's something going on with Deshaun. This is an offense that's starting to scare me a little bit because I think Jeudy going there. I think you're going to see one more year of Cooper, and I think Cooper's out the door. So I think Jeudy will eventually be the one. So in a dynasty league, he could be a very good sneaky pickup. But as for the quarterback and the running backs, that's kind of scary seeing all the additions that they want to add. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're all on 1-year deals.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So something's not right there, and it may take a little bit to figure out.
To be fair, Cleveland has had the longest stretch in the last several years with a going into the season starter and Deshaun Watson than they've had. If you think back to like the Tim Couch era, so maybe they're just like, "Hey, we're the Cleveland Browns. We've got to have quarterbacks in free agency. It's who we are. It's what we do." I'm not crazy about either of these moves, honestly, that I have written down. The Deontay Foreman one I like early in draft or early in the season, late in drafts. He could have some value the first couple of weeks of the season. I do think Chubb is slated to miss the first couple of weeks. I don't think he's supposed to be back on time for the start of the season, but even if he is, they're not going to rush him out there after that gruesome knee injury we saw last year. And the Jerry Jeudy thing, yeah, it could be fun, but just really don't trust Deshaun Watson. We haven't seen anything there that's made us feel that way for a couple of years. So I'm kind of not really in or out on Jeudy. I guess I'm just indifferent. Don't really care one way or the other.
Hey, just came across you like this. Bijan still has a perfect bracket.
Hey, good for Bijan. Smart man. Smart man. So then we move on to the last team here, which is probably also the funnest in this division, Brant. The Steelers with a quarterback you're familiar with and Russell Wilson, and then trade Kenny Pickett and then bring in Justin Fields via trade. Quarterback room has taken a shakeup.
Kenny Pickett went to Philly as a backup, correct?
Correct. Okay.
That one didn't.
I mean, even as a starter.
Once that trade went through, I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And then you got Russ and Fields. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. Mike Tomlin does. The man has not had a losing season in his career, so he knows what he's doing.
He wanted to have his first. That's why he brought in Arthur Smith.
I guess. And then they ship out their number one weapon there with Johnson. Pittsburgh's another. This whole division is shaking up. They're just shaking everything up in this whole division. I'm going to trust Mike Tomlin. I assume that we're going to see a lot of Najee, like in the Derrick Henry role back in the Tennessee Titans days. And Russell and Fields are going to sure. I don't know what they're going to do. You're going to get 1 week. They're just going to alternate weeks. 1 week it's going to be Russ. 1 week it's going to be Fields. Just going to alternate weeks. It is noted that Tomlin, I guess, called Russ and said, hey, this trade went through. Yes, you are the starter, though. So anyone that wants to give up a 102 for Justin Fields, by all means, I'll be more than happy to take that. But nothing's going to shock me with this team anymore after going out and getting both these guys.
Right. I agree. All right. Moving on to the AFC South. We've got the Texans, Joe Mixon via trade, and then they did re-sign Dalton Schultz. Joe Mixon, I love this. For CJ Stroud, I absolutely love this. I love all about this. I'm not sure it's a huge boost for Joe Mixon, but if Joe Mixon was not going to be on the Cincinnati offense, this is about the best place for him to go. I don't think he loses an ounce of value here, Brant.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz re-signing. That's going to be a good one for them. And you and me both talked. Add a veteran into that backfield with Stroud, and that's what they did. They went out and they got a veteran on the cheap. They were like, "No, you're not hitting free agency. We're going to trade for you." This is a smart move by the Houston. Oh my goodness, did I actually say that? A smart move by the Houston front office going out and getting this guy. This is going to be an absolute steal in a lot of drafts because people will be sleeping on Mixon too. It's going to be another fun offense to watch, a young offense with a veteran in the backfield. I absolutely love this.
Okay. Indianapolis Colts. I don't really have a whole lot written down. They did sign Joe Flacco in case Anthony Richardson gets hurt. Not much to see here in my mind. I don't know if you feel differently about the Colts than I do, Brant.
It is noted Pittman did re-sign, I think, a 3-year deal. So he will be staying with the Colts. He will be tied to that young quarterback. So that's good for them.
Correct. Jacksonville Jaguars, Mac Jones via trade. Again, another kind of a head scratcher, but for as cheap as you got him as a backup, I guess it makes sense. And then the big move for the Jacksonville Jaguars was they did allow Calvin Ridley to walk, and they signed Gabe Davis.
Christian Kirk season again, just like 2 years ago. Christian Kirk season again, I think. He slides back into the number one. We saw how valuable that offense was when he was the one. Gabe Davis, I think, is still going to be the same as he was in Buffalo. Boom or bust every single week. That's about all I got for that team.
Yeah, I agree here, Brant. I think it's Christian Kirk. I think Zay Jones and Gabe Davis will both pull on each other's value strings a little bit here. One will have a good week one week, one will have a good week the next, and then it'll be a couple weeks of nothing from both of them as guys like Evan Ingram and others come in and steal work. So not a whole lot of move the needle there for me with Gabe Davis. Again, kind of a lateral from his value previously. Last team in the division, Tennessee Titans. One of the busier teams with fantasy relevancy in this division. Quarterback, they signed Mason Rudolph. Tony Pollard is, by all stretch of the imagination, in the new starting running back. And then Calvin Ridley was signed. So first, before we get into this, Brant, I want to get your opinion out there on what this does to Tajay Spears and or Treylon Burks moving forward.
Treylon's been the number one for two years there, so he's seen the number one coverage. This could really help Treylon Burks, possibly. They're getting a new coaching staff too as well. As for Tajay, all you did was sign an older version of Tajay Spears. In my mind, yeah, he can run the ball. Okay, he can catch the ball. You sign an older version of Tajay. This is a split. This has committee written all over it. You no longer will have that. Yep, Derrick Henry's getting 300 carries. Nope, now it's 150 and 150.
Don't forget DeAndre Hopkins was the one in Tennessee last year.
Nobody was, let's be honest.
So Treylon, hey, D-Hop did have that 3 touchdown game against my Falcons. So, but I think really all this does is it just pushes D-Hop down a peg. I expect Calvin to be the guy. This new coaching staff went out and said, that's our guy. They spent a buttload of money on him. I expect him to be the one. D-Hop to be the 1B. I don't know where this leaves Treylon Burks. I'm a little nervous for Burks.
Can he get traded?
Okonkwo. That would be best case scenario, depending on where he went. But I mean, send him to Carolina. Let's I don't know.
They're loading up too.
All right, moving on to the last division in the AFC West. I've got the Broncos. I put nothing. They've done nothing that really excites me on offense for fantasy.
The only thing they did is they said, watch this guy, hold my beer and watch this. Kaboom. We're going to blow everything up and have everybody scratching their head and take one of the biggest, if not the biggest cap hits in NFL history.
I guess you could make the argument that maybe this is good news for Javonte Williams because they didn't go sniff any of those backs. That's about all I got there. The Chiefs, Marquise Hollywood-Brown and Irv Smith is what I've gotten written down there, Brant.
Irv Smith, you're probably a year or 5 or 10 whenever Travis decides to hang it up before he's real relevant. God, Marquise Brown is going to be so tempting this year. Don't fall into the bait of, he's going to be a top 10. He's going to be the greatest receiver this year. I do think he will be good. But I still think Rashee Rice is the best receiver on that team. outside of Travis
Yeah,
Kelce.
yeah, I agree with you 100% here, Brant. My hope with Marquise Brown is that because as a Patrick Mahomes owner, I'm saying this. I hope Marquise Brown gets some of those targets that went to Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Justin Watson, and Sky Moore, and secures the ball when it gets thrown to him. If that man catches every pass that was thrown to those 4 wide receivers last year that they dropped or just didn't execute, you're talking about Hollywood Brown as a top 10 wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think that happens. He's not going to catch every ball thrown to him, and there'll be some other guys catching passes. I do like Marquise Hollywood Brown. I think he has some games as a wide receiver 1 this year.
Oh, absolutely.
But I agree with you. I still would rather have Rashee Rice in this offense, but I do think Marquise Brown has the most value he's had in his career at this point, in my opinion. Raiders. You'll love this one. Gardner Minshew went to the Raiders. I think he's going to sign a spot where he's going to be able to compete. And then the only other one I've got written down, which isn't really a move the needle, is Alexander Madison, just because of the fact that he was a starting running back last year, I guess.
We saw what Madison does as a starter. I think this is Zamir White's backfield, barring them adding somebody else that could do it. I think Zamir White is. I think you're looking at 70-30 split here, which is great because Madison is a great backup. We've seen that in multiple years. And let's go, Gardner Minshew. Let's go. You're getting closer to Seattle. I love it. I think he will be the starter there, which means I think Adams is going to try to run out of that door as fast as possible.
Could be. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe Devontae Adams is a Jort guy. We don't know.
Maybe.
All right. Another team that's kind of clearing house and just going nuts here, the Los Angeles Chargers, where Quentin Johnson and Joshua Palmer are the sole wide receivers at this point. They signed Gus Edwards to, I guess, replace Austin Eckler, and then taking a page out of Seattle's playbook, Will Dissly and Hayden Hurst is what I've gotten written down. Not a whole lot of anything I care about there, Brant.
The only thing that I'm going to put this out, and this could be a little homer pick, I think Will Dissly may be a sleeper this year because Gerald Everett is gone. And there ain't nobody else catching the ball but Quentin Johnson. Oh, wait, there's nobody catching the ball because we watch him drop it. So Will Dissly could be a sneaky pickup this year if you're waiting on tight end. That's about all I got.
If you think back to when Hunter Henry was in town there, he was an electric tight end there. So I think there's work for a tight end here. I could see a top 10 tight end coming out of this offense, but it also may come in the form of Brock Bowers, who they may draft. So I'm not getting too high on anybody yet there. If Will Dissly ends up being a starter, he could have immense value for the 4 weeks that he's healthy. All right, moving on to the NFC. We're going to start with the NFC East. The Cowboys, I've got nothing there. They were laid out of the gate. They've done nothing to replace the running backs. They cut Michael Gallup. They really haven't done anything to sign him. Pretty boring in Dallas.
Rico's still in the backfield. Rico and a midget, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. This just in, breaking news, Jerry Jones plans to be the running back for the Dallas Cowboys this year. Moving on to the New York Giants, 2 moves that I actually kind of like for the Giants. Drew Lock, they signed, and then Devin Singletary to replace Saquon Barkley.
Well, Singletary is going to get work there because I don't even know if they have a true receiver that they actually trust or a quarterback that they actually trust to throw the ball. I like the fact that Locke went there. I know he said he signed because he thinks he can compete, but he knows that Daniel Jones is the starter. I think Locke can actually compete with him, and Singletary is going to be valuable this year.
Agreed. Moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, Kenny Pickett via trade with the Steelers. Saquon Barkley. And then I wrote this one down just because I want to talk about it for a brief second and then never again. Paris Campbell. We've all wanted Paris Campbell to be a thing in the past. We've all picked him up as a late dart throwing drafts. I know you're guilty because we've been on this road together before. This doesn't do anything for Paris Campbell, guys. Please don't go out and say, ooh, Paris Campbell and a Philly jersey. No. All he was brought in for was an extra guy to get behind Jalen Hurst and push for the butt rush. This is the tush push. This is nothing. I'm out on Paris Campbell.
Barkley's going to go way down because he has to fall down at the 1-yard line in order to push Jalen Hurts in. They're not allowed to score touchdowns. The running backs are not allowed to score touchdowns in Philly. No, Barkley's going from the 31st ranked offensive line, rushing offensive line, to I think they were the second. I know they've lost a few pieces on that line. This is a huge, huge upgrade in my mind, because I think he'll be more efficient with his touches. I think his touches may come down, but I think he's going to be a lot more efficient with them.
You know who else thinks this is an upgrade, Brant? Is Saquon Barkley's like 4-year-old daughter, who asked, "Does this mean we get to win now, Dad?"
Sounds like a smart
man,
girl.
If you're a Giants fan, just gosh, there's got to be a help group out there someplace, a support group. I'm sorry.
Sign the 4-year-old kid. She knows what it takes to win. Getting out of there.
I mean, the man behind the scenes, Josh Rodriguez, that makes all these podcasts possible. He is a Giants fan. But maybe he doesn't want us telling people that, Brant, because I don't think I'd be bragging to anybody about being a Giants fan. But anyway, I digress. Moving on. The Washington Commanders added a new head coach that you and I are both familiar with, and Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn goes out and trades Sam Howell, which we will talk about a little bit later on, signs Austin Eckler, and then signs a guy his age to hang out with, and Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz is going to be valuable there in Washington. And he signed Bobby Wagner too. I just got to throw it out there because I love Bobby. I know it has nothing to do with fantasy. I honestly have no idea what this offense is gonna look like. I honestly don't even know who's throwing the ball because Brissett went to New England. So I honestly have no idea who the quarterback's going to be there. Whoever they draft, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
This offense is going to be ugly to watch. And I'm sorry that Austin Eckler has to deal with it. I think he went in there thinking, oh, okay, we got Sam Howell. He's going to throw the ball. And then Sam Howell's gone. And he doesn't even know who he's going to catch the ball from. This offense is going to be ugly to look at.
I did read a comment that Eckler put out, which Eckler's very engaging with the fantasy community. He plays, he likes to own himself, very straight up, and tells people like, hey, I'm going to try to play this week. I've got myself in lineups too. Like, stand-up guy for us in the fantasy community. He did come out and say, he did come out and say that he was excited about working in the backfield with Brian Robinson because he hopes it gets him back to where he felt the best in his career when he was with Melvin Gordon in the backfield in LA early. So we'll see if maybe it keeps his legs a little fresher and maybe he gets back to having that upside that he had 2-3 years ago. So we'll see. I'm optimistically hopeful about Eckler, but I don't think he's a first-round draft pick in redrafts anymore. Definitely not a first-round draft pick in dynasty startups, but there we go. All right, moving right along. NFC North, Brant. We'll start with the Chicago Bears, who did trade away Justin Fields. We all know Caleb Williams is coming to town, most likely. They started off with the first move of free agency when it became legal. DeAndre Swift signed with the Bears to, solidify their running back field. And then Keenan Allen via trade, another big move. Ryan Poles is making some moves in town there.
Why did it take you this long to add weapons for your quarterback and then you ship your quarterback? I'm sorry, all you Roshan Johnson believers. That was me as well. Swift is going to take over that backfield. Keenan Allen is by far one of the best possession wide receivers in the NFL. And then you got DJ Moore, and man, I don't understand. I get the whole theory and everything. I just don't understand why it took you this long to add weapons for the guy. Don't forget to also mention Gerald Everett did sign with them. He could have some value too. We've seen Cole Kmet spread out into the flex area, so you could see some Everett there too. But yeah, Swift is going to be a guy that's going to see the field a lot. And Keenan Allen, like I said, he's one of the best possession guys. He could end up with 10 catches a game, averaging like 7.5 catches a game. It could be crazy to see.
Yeah, I like the Keenan Allen move a lot. I like what I actually like is whoever this rookie quarterback is that's going to go there being set up for success the day one. If you look at Bryce Young, the Panthers did him no favors last year. CJ Stroud just ended up being a lot better than we expected. Texans, with the exception of Tank Dell, didn't really add anything last year. It just happened for them. I think a lot of those guys were good players that just didn't have the quarterback play to back it up. But then if you look at, in recent years, the Jaguars didn't have a whole lot set up for Trevor Lawrence when they brought it. So I like this for Caleb Williams coming in the door. The Bears have said, hey, we're going to take care of you. Let's go get it the first year.
This could be the best setup that a rookie quarterback's ever walked into.
Absolutely, I agree.
I feel bad for Justin Fields. You were there getting beat up, and then, hey, we're going to ship you.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to the division winners last year in the Detroit Lions. Nothing here. I didn't see anything anyway. Again, they've addressed a lot of defensive, but if I was the coordinators there, I wouldn't want anything either. They were great. They kept Ben Johnson. You couldn't ask for a better fantasy-wise for the Lions. Packers traded out running backs. They re-signed A.J. Dillon, brought in Josh Jacobs over electing to keep Aaron Jones, who we will talk about in just a split second. What do you make of Josh Jacobs? Love it, hate it, indifferent?
Got younger. I think he's still going to be the same type of running back as Aaron Jones was. You just got younger in the backfield. I do like this addition of Jacobs.
I tell you what, I can't wait to see Josh Jacobs running the ball. He's a little wildebeest running out there. I can't wait to see it in the snow confines of Lambeau late in December. You talk about attrition to the opposing defense. Imagine having to hit him in sub-zero temperatures, in the fourth quarter. So love that for him to be fun to watch. Moving on to the last team in this division, the Vikings. Obviously, I mentioned Aaron Jones. The biggest one I want to talk about is right now, Brant, I know there's speculation they're going to trade up to 4 with the Arizona Cardinals. Okay. There's speculation. As things sit right now, Sam Darnold is the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson's about the only thing there outside of TJ Hawkinson to catch the ball. I don't love anything about what they've done this offseason. I'm out. I mean, you bring JJ McCarthy in and you start over and tell me maybe a year from now we're going to compete again. Sure. But that doesn't make a whole lot of damn sense with the Aaron Jones move because he's not going to be there in a couple of years. So I don't know what to make of what Minnesota's doing, Brant. If you've got something, help me out.
Aaron Jones is going to get 300 touches. No, it makes me laugh because then I look at the bottom and I found out who's throwing the ball in Washington, and it's just about as gross. Marcus Mariota did side with Washington.
Oh, yeah.
So it's extremely disgusting. Like, what are you doing with Sam Darnold? You know he's not a starter. Good luck, Minnesota, because I don't know. You're going to have to give up Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison to move up to number 4 probably. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Yeah. All right, moving on to the NFC South. Start with my Atlanta Falcons. Biggest signing of the free agency period so far, Kirk Cousins. They did then follow that up by bringing in Darnell Mooney, who I guess Cousins pushed for. And then they were able to successfully trade Desmond Ridder to the Arizona Cardinals for Rondale Moore. I thought they got a better package than the Bears did for Justin Fields. I'm just saying. But I like all this. I wasn't initially a big fan of it as a Falcons fan, but taking the fandom out of it, I like this a lot for fantasy. I think you're finally going to get to see what we've hoped to see out of Kyle Pitts. His rookie year was very promising, but I think we could see better than his rookie year. And then, my goodness, I just can't wait to see Drake London. I think Drake London ends up being a younger version of Keenan Allen. I'm talking, 10 targets a game, 7 receptions, 90 yards, a pair of scores. Like, I think you could start seeing that routinely for Drake London, Brant.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. That's one of my favorite signings this offseason was you guys getting Cousins. I'm a Drake. I got London in a couple leagues, so I'm excited to see that. Kyle Pitts is a guy that I know everyone's saying, don't go out and get him. Don't fall for this bait. Go out and get Kyle Pitts, especially if that person's like, hey, I don't want Kyle Pitts. He's been trash. Go get Kyle Pitts. All right. Mm-hmm. Go trade for Kyle Pitts right now. I don't care what everyone says. Cousins is going to make this offense take that step forward. Your defense was already decent last year. It's going to get better. I assume now that you guys have Cousins, you will address that at the 8th overall. I think 8th, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll address the defensive side with the 8th overall. I absolutely love this addition.
Yep. All right, moving on. Carolina Panthers. Really, the only thing I got for them is Deontay Johnson via trade. Absolutely love that for Deontay Johnson.
I love it. I love it for Bryce Young too. I love it. I absolutely love it. Give him somebody that's a little younger, another possession guy. I think Thielen is still there. So you got two good possession wideouts. I absolutely love this move.
Here's my thing with Deontay Johnson. He's going to slide into that Thielen role from last year. Hyper targets, scheming the ball to be in his hands. And he's younger and more agile at this point in his career than Thielen is at his point. I think you could be talking about a huge season incoming for Deontay Johnson.
And then Thielen's going to slide back into the role that he was in for almost his entire career in that number 2 role, the slot role, filling up the void of the zone defense. So I really like this move for Carolina.
New Orleans Saints, not a whole lot here. Not much worth talking about. Moving over to Tampa, one of my favorite signings of the offseason was they did give Baker that bag. He earned it there in Tampa last year. We did get to see him in person last year, have a pretty good game against the Atlanta Falcons. I like Baker re-signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, running it back with Mike Evans as well. Love everything Tampa's done. I hate to say that, but I do like what Tampa's done this offseason.
Absolutely. They did everything right that they needed to do. They did let some key defensive pieces go away, but on the offensive side, they did the right thing.
Absolutely. All right. Last but not least, your NFC West, Brant. Starting off with the Arizona Cardinals. Biggest thing I've got for them was they traded Rondale Moore for Desmond Ridder. Gross. There's not much to talk about. I do think these guys are players, big players for Marvin Harrison, Rome, Oduzzi, or Malik Neighbors in the draft. So I do expect them to get a little bit better weapon-wise in just a few short weeks here. So nothing really to talk about there. Rams, similar situation. Jimmy Garoppolo, about the best thing they got going for him. Again, they'll run it back. I like what they have.
And they added Parkinson from Seattle, who was supposed to be one of the better tight ends in the draft class. Seattle has 18 of them on the roster, so we never really used him. He could be relevant there. We'll talk more about that as we get closer to the season to see if he still is the number one tight end there.
San Francisco 49ers, again, not a whole lot. Josh Dobbs is about the biggest thing I've got going on in San Fran for off-season wise. So not much there. And then lastly, your Seahawks haven't done a whole lot either. They did trade for Sam Howell, which I like, to let him sit for a year behind Geno Smith. We've already seen what he's capable of in an NFL offense. I wonder if Seattle did get their quarterback of the future here with Sam Howell for a cheap price.
I love what we did. I think Sam Howell actually is going to be the starter probably about midway through the year. He showed what he was capable of. Yeah, I know he threw 21 interceptions, but I still like this fit. They loved him in the draft the year that he was picked, and they wanted to trade up for him, but they never did because Seattle doesn't know how to trade up. But they waited a few years and went and got him for even cheaper then. So I do love this move.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, it's been a busy, few weeks in free agency. We'll still see some dominoes fall. We've still got some things to happen. We've got the draft coming up. It's a good time of the year for fantasy. It's not too much to where you have to be on the phones every single day, but it's enough that you stay into it, right? I know there's been some trades in some leagues I'm in. It's been a fun period here. So definitely we'll be getting out. Again, I want to mention it. We will be live on the night of the draft doing some instant reactions to the first round as it happens. We will have a couple others join us, it sounds like, with that. So should be a fun time had by all for that, Brant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a great time. I know we're coming at you mainly bi-weekly. We'll keep doing our best. Some weeks there just isn't a whole lot to talk about. So, but the draft's near and pro days are coming. So it's coming, guys. It's coming. But thanks for joining us. And as always, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friends.